You've probably heard this name before. Theranos, $9 billion with a B, 700 million in investor funds, all based on technology that literally never worked.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Get this. Elizabeth Holmes convinced some of the world's most sophisticated investors to hand over massive checks for blood testing devices that were basically medical props. But here's what every entrepreneur needs to understand about this collapse. This wasn't just about fake science. This was a masterclass in how charismatic leadership can create billion-dollar delusions. And that's exactly what we do here at Simple Storytellers, making complex business crystal clear, one story at a time. So let me break down exactly how this happened. Picture this. 2003, Stanford University. A 19-year-old chemical engineering student named Elizabeth Holmes drops out to chase what she believes is a billion-dollar idea. Her vision? Revolutionary blood testing, using just a few drops from a finger prick instead of those painful, expensive vials we've all endured. But here's the crazy part. The science was fundamentally impossible from day one. Think about it. Traditional labs need substantial blood volumes because you're running complex biochemical reactions called immunoassays that detect hormones and proteins. Plus, Theranos claimed their Edison device could handle hundreds of these tests using microfluidics, basically manipulating microscopic amounts of liquid. The problem? A single drop of blood simply doesn't contain enough material for reliable results. Holmes wasn't just selling convenience, she was selling a scientific impossibility. But instead of admitting this, she doubled down with a personal brand strategy that would make Steve Jobs jealous. Black turtleneck, unnaturally deep voice, positioning herself as the next tech visionary. Meanwhile, Silicon Valley was hungry for healthcare disruption, and regulatory loopholes created perfect conditions for this deception. What seemed like innovation was about to become the biggest fraud in medical history. The rise. By 2013, Elizabeth Holmes had built something extraordinary on paper. Theranos hit a staggering $9 billion valuation. But here's what most entrepreneurs miss about this rise. It wasn't built on product success. It was built on investor psychology. Get this, Holmes assembled what looked like the ultimate startup board. George Shultz, former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, William Perry, former Defense Secretary. These weren't tech executives who could challenge her claims. They were political heavyweights who brought instant credibility. The fundraising was equally brilliant. She raised $700 million from sophisticated investors, Rupert Murdoch, Betsy DeVos, the Walton family. But here's where it gets really wild. She structured dual-class shares, giving her 99% voting control. Investors wrote massive checks, while Holmes kept absolute power. And here's what's crazy. One of these big-name investors would eventually lose more money than anyone else. We'll get to who that was. Then came the partnership that seemed to validate everything. Walgreens. Plans for over 1,000 wellness centers. This wasn't just a business deal. It was social proof that legitimized Theranos everywhere. The media coverage was intoxicating. Fortune's Woman of the Year, Forbes billionaire covers, Time magazine features. Every story reinforced the same narrative: young genius disrupting healthcare. But here's what nobody was asking. With all this legitimacy and scrutiny, how were they fooling lab inspectors and regulatory bodies for years? That answer will shock you. You're probably thinking this sounds like every successful startup story. But wait, there's more. While Holmes promised the Edison device could run hundreds of tests from tiny nanotainers with 50% cost reductions, internally the company was falling apart. The devices could only perform 15 of 240 advertised tests. That's a 94% failure rate. Anyone who's pitched investors knows the pressure to oversell capabilities. But this wasn't optimistic projections. This was systematic fraud enabled by Silicon Valley's fake it till you make it culture and regulatory gaps around laboratory-developed tests. Even as Theranos reached peak valuation and media acclaim, employees inside were discovering the technology was essentially fiction. The gap between public promises and private reality was about to explode. the warning signs. While Elizabeth Holmes graced magazine covers, the reality inside Theranos was catastrophic. Remember that 94% technology failure rate? It gets worse. Quality control data was alarming. February 2014, 29% of tests falling outside acceptable ranges. February 2015, hormone tests failing 87% of the time. These aren't growing pains, these are fundamental product failures. But here's where it gets really wild. Instead of fixing the science, Theranos launched an intimidation campaign. Tyler Shultz, grandson of board member George Shultz, noticed false positive results during his internship. Erika Cheung documented safety violations. Adam Rosendorf, the lab director, raised concerns about patient reliability. Think about that for a moment. Your own employees risking their careers to warn about patient safety. Instead of listening, leadership fired questioners, legal threats, surveillance, weaponized NDAs. We've all seen toxic startup cultures, but this was systematic suppression of life-threatening problems. Meanwhile, real patients were getting devastating false results. HIV misdiagnoses, false pregnancy complications. One woman told she had a miscarriage when she didn't. These weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. These were people's lives. You're probably thinking regulators would catch this. They were starting to. FDA inspections revealed unvalidated devices and poor record keeping. CMS found immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. Here's the crucial lesson for any entrepreneur. When your employees are risking everything to warn about safety and regulators are finding violations, you're not dealing with growing pains. You're dealing with fraud. But here's the thing about lies this big. They can't last forever. The question wasn't whether Theranos would collapse. The question was how spectacular the fall would be. And it all came down to one specific moment, one article that would destroy everything in a matter of months. The fall, October 2015. Wall Street Journal investigative journalist John Carreyrou published an article that would destroy a $9 billion company in months. Working with whistleblowers like Tyler Shultz and Erika Cheung, Carreyrou exposed the impossible. Edison devices were largely props, and Theranos was secretly using traditional machines for most tests. But here's where it gets really brutal from a business perspective. The domino effect was unstoppable. CMS declared Theranos' Newark lab posed immediate jeopardy to patient health. FDA found systematic violations. Within months, laboratory certification revoked. Holmes and Balwani banned from operating medical labs for 2 years. Walgreens immediately suspended testing services. Pharmaceutical partnerships dissolved overnight. The company, burning $8 to $9 million monthly, suddenly couldn't access Medicare payments, keeping it alive. Get this. By 2017, Theranos was burning through cash so quickly, they secured a desperate $100 million loan using patents as collateral. Mass layoffs eliminated 40% of workforce. That $9 billion valuation, essentially worthless. The legal consequences were equally severe. March 2018, SEC charges for massive fraud. June, criminal charges for wire fraud and conspiracy. Here's the really scary part. Thousands of patients had received inaccurate results, with an estimated 10% error rate affecting critical medical decisions. People stopped taking important heart medications based on wrong test results. Others were told they had cancer when they didn't. Anyone who's built a startup knows the pressure to fake it till you make it. But there's a line between optimistic projections and endangering lives. Theranos didn't just cross that line, they obliterated it. The trials that followed would reveal just how deep this deception really went. The lessons, the trials delivered the final punishment. Elizabeth Holmes, 11 years, 3 months in federal prison, plus $452 million she has to pay back to investors. Sunny Balwani, nearly 13 years. Investors lost over $700 million. Public trust in medical innovation shattered. If you're building a startup right now, here are 4 critical lessons. First, the science wasn't there. In healthcare, regulatory compliance isn't optional. It's the foundation of patient safety. Hype cannot substitute for scientific rigor. ever. Second, celebrity boards are red flags. We've all been impressed by big names, but your board needs expertise matching your technology, not just connections. When board members can't evaluate your core product, their decoration. Third, even sophisticated investors got fooled. Charismatic founders can blind experienced VCs because everyone wants to believe in disruption. Technology claims require independent validation, not just compelling presentations. Fourth, culture eats everything. When employees risk careers warning about safety, listen. Secrecy doesn't protect trade secrets. It enables fraud. The bottom line? Anyone can raise money on a compelling story, but building real value requires real science, real governance, and real integrity. If you made it this far, you're clearly serious about understanding business. This is actually our first business failure breakdown. We've covered several successful companies, but I wanted to start diving into the expensive mistakes too. If this taught you anything new, hit subscribe, share this with anyone who loves learning about business, and comment valuable content. We're just getting started with these billion-dollar disaster stories. And if you want to see how business success actually works, check out our case studies on successful companies right here. Trust me, the next failure story makes Theranos look simple.